The Chiefs didn't choke, but the Crusaders, to a degree, were able to, if not completely strangle them, certainly cut off the air supply. Clayton McMillan has taken that team back to where they were under Dave Rennie and Wayne Smith. Really brought that whole Chiefs mana thing. That's the sort of rugby that you also probably want to see when you've got a test series just around the corner, because that was much closer to test rugby than obviously what you see through the first 6, 8, 10 weeks of Super Rugby.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Super Rugby final on a Saturday night. Now, tomorrow again, we're going to deal with the All Black squad named today. We thought on the podcast, on the show today, we'll just look at this final because it does deserve it. The competition deserves a whole show on it. And Tony, you called it, of course, in Christchurch. That map on the background there, though, that's London, isn't it? And you lived there for a number of years. So just whip around and tell me exactly where you were compared to where Buckingham Palace is.
That's Uma.
That's Uma on that side.
That's important too.
Yep.
And I used to live Wimbledon, just down here. It only in Effra Road, Wimbledon. And that Buckingham Palace is way up there somewhere. I don't know.
Right. Was it a good final, mate? Did you enjoy it?
I thought it was a great final, Martin. One decided by very fine margins. It was played in front of what I thought was probably the best Crusaders crowd I've ever witnessed. Wow. It's the first time I've ever been there and I've heard them chanting when their team's been on defence, under pressure, which is what you really want from your home fans, isn't it? They made home advantage count, so there was a good atmosphere. We got lucky with the weather because it had been raining on and off during the day and it cleared up. Conditions weren't perfect, but they're about as good as you're going to get at this time of year. And we had two really good teams, two outstanding teams who both deserved to be there, in my opinion. And they got a final that was decided in the end by what? 5 points? 4 points? Yeah. 4 points, yeah. So it wasn't, all the free-flowing, spectacular, lots of tries scoring rugby that you see through the first 12 weeks of the competition. You didn't see any of that because it was a final and the two teams played accordingly. You've got to change your game in accordance with what's at stake and what the conditions are like and what your opposition's like. And I think that in the end, the Crusaders, they were deserved winners because they edged all of the key areas of the game.
The 3 knockout rounds, 12 points, 14 points, 12 points. It says everything, doesn't it? I mean, I started the show by saying defence wins championships. It's one of the oldest cliches, but it's just true, isn't it? And that's what the Crusaders do. They just put the wall up, they shut down, and they are capable, as Todd Blackadder told us last week, of winning without the ball.
Yeah, and they also kept their discipline really well. Yes, there was a yellow card early on. That happens. But for the most part, they were able to make a lot of tackles. Both teams made a phenomenal number of tackles in this game without giving away penalties. They just didn't offer up a lot of shots at goal. As I say, they were all fine margins in the game, but it's probably something that's in their DNA. We saw it, if you think way back, we talked about it last week, that final in Canberra, 25 years ago. Right? It's still there, that total determination not to yield your line. They did give up 2 tries because the Chiefs are a good team and they scored tries, but they defended so well through the key parts there. The Chiefs didn't choke, but the Crusaders, to a degree, were able to, if not completely strangle them, certainly cut off the air supply. And that's what winning finals is about. And that's the sort of rugby that you also probably want to see when you've got a test series just around the corner, because that was much closer to test rugby than obviously what you see through the first 6, 8, 10 weeks of Super Rugby, when it is about throwing the ball around, playing entertaining rugby. This is different. The stakes go up, and so the margins narrow.
Tony, are you surprised at all? I mean, even what their season was like last year, are you really that surprised, given their record, given their championship pedigree?
Well, what it has proven is that last year was an aberration. And to me, it's a very lazy headline for people to start talking about the redemption of Rob Penny, because that implies that what happened last year was his fault. And of course, it wasn't. You had players who had been the mainstays of that team, the likes of Whitelock and Mo'unga, leaving. You had an injury list. You had a new coach coming in, and obviously there's some adjustment there. what this does is it vindicates the decision of the Crusaders board to stick with their guy, to see the potential that Rob Penny had with a year under his belt, hopefully a healthier roster this year, which they got. And so I'm not surprised. No, I thought the Chiefs were definitely capable of winning it, and they were right in the game right till the end. They're a very good team. But in the end, that home advantage, and I think you can go back to that Blues game, when they lost that game, lost a place in the seedings, that probably was a telling factor in determining the outcome. That's not to say that I don't think the Crusaders were not capable of going to Hamilton and winning. Of course they were, because they've done it before. On season form, it favoured the Chiefs in that they'd won the 2 games. But history tells you that the Crusaders were the favourites for that game because of their amazing record at home and their ability that they have found so often over their history just to play the big moments better than any other team.
Yeah. You know, and look, I use the C word. It's not choke, it's close. Somehow the Chiefs have got to be able to learn from somewhere to close these games, because 3 in a row is, I mean, they'll be really smarting from that, and so they should be. It's the Crusaders who've learned how to do that, right?
Oh, yeah, and well, more than smarting, absolutely devastated by it, because they wanted to win, obviously for themselves. That euphoria that you get, you saw it at the end of the game, those amazing scenes, what it's like when you win, and the despair when you lose. But they wanted to send their coach off, because Clayton McMillan has taken that team back in terms of the culture and their connections, things that are very, very important to that side. He's taken them back to where they were under Dave Rennie and Wayne Smith. You know, really totally brought that whole Chiefs mana thing, and they've rediscovered themselves in that regard. And, you know, you got to feel for the guy, because he's done a fantastic job. And I don't think making 3 finals, some people will say, oh, you know, you can't go the extra distance or you choke or whatever you like. That's still not a small achievement. That's not a massive achievement. But
yeah,
that's going to be no consolation to those guys when they woke up yesterday morning, if they'd been to sleep, or when they wake up this morning, or when they wake up probably for the next, I don't know, 60 mornings, next 100 mornings. It's going to stay with them. So you feel a little bit for the vanquished, but by the same token, I think you've just got to take your hats off to what the Crusaders have achieved.
Couple more quick questions. We'll let you go. And again, catching up tomorrow to look at back the All Black squad, all the questions and you know, and all the, you know, the newbies, and as exciting as it always is. It's one of my favourite days of the year when the first All Black squad gets announced, and you just think of the life-changing moments and things. Yeah. But, you know, again, in terms of the overall competition this year, we started talking at the very start, Tone, and it was great, wasn't it? I mean, every week there was double jeopardy going on. The Australian sides were surprising us. There were 4 of them in the top 6. We saw some fantastic rugby. In terms of it as an overall season, was it better than last year? Is it worth even talking about that? Is it better than the previous year? Because they need it to be better.
I thought it was better. I thought the first 6, 8, 10 weeks of the competition were as good as I could remember, just in terms of the quality of the rugby that we were seeing. I think we all liked the way the games were being refereed. The teams were getting a chance to play. We weren't seeing the slowing down tactics weren't being allowed. There was a lot to like about it. It played in such great conditions as well. And so, that part of it was great. But then, of course, you get the winter starts to set in, the depths of the winter start to set in, and you have this scenario. Sorry, I've got a low battery thing. I just had to press it then.
That's all right, mate.
You were frozen in time there.
That's right.
But then you get to the business end, and you see the sort of rugby that's more akin to test match rugby, and that's not a bad thing. The stakes are high sometimes on a night like that, and the conditions were as good as you could hope at this time of year. But it just didn't allow for free-flowing rugby, and teams aren't going to take those sorts of risks anyway. And it just shows how much it means when they perhaps go into the show. We saw a lot of kicking, but what we saw too was a lot of fantastic kick chase. It wasn't in any way dull because it wasn't spectacular. It was exciting because it was so relentlessly physical and intense and on a razor's edge for pretty much the whole game. And surely that's what a final's all about.
This is the DSPN.